Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
I rubbed my eyes, struggling to focus on the seemingly endless pile of AP history essays before me. The clock on my classroom wall ticked relentlessly, a constant reminder of the late hour. 9:47 p.m. Vanessa would be wondering where I was. Just a few more, I muttered, reaching for my lukewarm coffee. As I took a sip, my laptop screen flickered and went dark. No, 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 I groaned, frantically tapping the keys, willing the machine back to life. But it was no use. The battery had finally given up. With a weary sigh, I gathered my things and headed for the parking lot. As I drove home, my mind drifted to the mountain of work still waiting for me. I had to finish grading those essays tonight if I wanted to return them tomorrow as promised. The house was quiet when I arrived. I found a note from Vanessa on the kitchen counter, working late. Leftovers in the fridge. Love you. I smiled, touched by her thoughtfulness, despite the pang of guilt over my own lateness. I warmed up a plate of lasagna and carried it to her home office. Vanessa's laptop sat on the desk, its sleek, silver form a stark contrast to my clunky, work-issued behemoth. I hesitated for a moment, then shrugged. She would not mind if I borrowed it to finish my work. As the computer booted up, I savored a bite of lasagna, then navigated to my cloud storage, eager to access the rubric I had created for grading the essays. But before I could open the document, a chat window popped up in the corner of the screen. My fork clattered onto the plate as I read the message. Nathan, can't wait to see you tomorrow, babe. Hotels booked, same place as last time. The room seemed to tilt sideways as I stared at the screen, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. Nathan, my brother, Nathan, calling her babe, booking a hotel room. With trembling hands, I scrolled up through the chat history, my eyes darting across the screen, absorbing snippets of conversation that painted a horrifying picture. Vanessa, miss you already. Last night was amazing. Nathan, God, you're incredible. I can't forget you. Vanessa, we need to be more careful. Caleb almost caught me deleting our texts last week. My breath came in short, sharp gasps as I continued to scroll. The messages went back years. Years of secret meetings, passionate declarations, and intricate lies. My wife and my brother carrying on an affair right under my nose. A detached part of my mind noted the irony. Here I was, a history teacher, uncovering a secret history of my own life. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it, but the sound caught in my throat, twisting into a choked sob. With shaking fingers, I minimized the chat window and began searching Vanessa's computer. I felt like a stranger in my own skin, violating my wife's privacy even as my heart shattered into a million pieces. But I could not stop. I had to know the full extent of their betrayal. Buried deep in a maze of subfolders, I found a directory labeled Work Projects. Inside were hundreds of photos. Vanessa and Nathan, together. Paris, Rome, Bali. All those business trips they had taken over the years suddenly cast in a sickening new light. I clicked through the images, my vision blurring with rage. Vanessa and Nathan in front of the Eiffel Tower, his arm around her waist. The two of them on a sunset beach, locked in a passionate kiss. My wife, my brother, looking happier than I had ever seen either of them. Next, I found a folder of credit card statements. My stomach churned as I scrolled through page after page of incriminating evidence, expensive hotel stays, lavish dinners, jewelry purchases, all carefully hidden from me over the years. But the final blow came when I stumbled upon a hidden email about a private medical appointment. The cryptic language hinted at a possible pregnancy scare. My mind reeled as I considered the implications. Emily, our beautiful 5-year-old daughter, might not be mine. I do not know how long I sat there, staring at the screen, my world crumbling around me. But as the initial shock began to fade, a cold, calculated anger took its place. I was a history teacher, yes, but I had always had a hobby-level interest in digital forensics. Now, those skills would serve me well. With methodical precision, I began documenting everything I had found. I took screenshots, copied files, and created backups of all the incriminating evidence. I made sure to cover my tracks, using my knowledge of digital forensics to ensure I left no trace of my discovery. By the time I heard Vanessa's car pulling into the driveway, I had compiled a damning dossier of their betrayal. I quickly closed all windows, erased my digital footprints, and retreated to our bedroom, my mind racing with plans. The next evening, I waited until Emily was tucked into bed before approaching Vanessa. My heart pounded, but but I forced my voice to remain calm. Vanessa, can we talk for a moment? I gestured toward the living room couch. She looked up from her phone, a flicker of confusion crossing her face. Sure, honey. Is everything okay? I sat down across from her, studying her face, the face I had woken up to for the past 10 years. The face I thought I knew better than my own. Now, it felt like I was looking at a stranger. I wanted to ask you about Nathan, I began, keeping my tone neutral. Vanessa's eyebrows knitted together. Nathan? What about him? You two spend a lot of time together, I said, watching her reaction carefully. I was just wondering about the nature of your relationship. Her expression faltered. What do you mean? Her voice rose slightly. He's your brother. We are friends, of course. I nodded slowly. Just friends? Nothing more? She averted her gaze for a fraction of a second before forcing herself to meet my eyes. Caleb, what are you getting at? Nathan and I work together sometimes. That is all. I leaned forward. Are you sure there is nothing else you want to tell me, Vanessa? She shifted uncomfortably, her fingers twisting in her lap. I do not know what you are talking about, Caleb. You are starting to worry me. With deliberate slowness, I pulled out my phone and opened one of the photos I had discovered. Vanessa and Nathan kissing on that sunset beach. I turned the screen toward her. How about now? I asked quietly. Anything you want to tell me now? The color drained from Vanessa's face. She stared at the image, her mouth opening and closing, but no sound came out. I know everything, Vanessa, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The affair, the trips, the secret meetings, all of it. Her facade crumbled. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she buried her face in her hands. Oh God, Caleb, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I sat back, watching her break down. A part of me wanted to comfort her, to take her in my arms like I had done so many times before. But that part was overshadowed by the cold, hard knot of betrayal in my chest. How long? I asked. Vanessa looked up, mascara smeared around red-rimmed eyes. 6 years, she whispered. The admission hit me like a physical blow. 6 years. More than half our marriage. And Emily? I dreaded the answer but had to know. Vanessa's face crumpled. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I do not know, she whispered. I honestly do not know. I closed my eyes. The ground beneath me seemed to disappear. When I opened them again, Vanessa was pleading. Please, Caleb, you cannot tell anyone. Think about Emily. Think about our families. I stared at her, marveling at her audacity. She had betrayed me in the worst possible way. And now she wanted me to protect her reputation. I will think about it, I said. Unbeknownst to her, I had recorded our entire conversation. Just one more piece of evidence to add to my growing collection. Each piece of information I uncovered was carefully filed away in a secure, encrypted digital folder. This would be my arsenal, my protection against whatever might come next. As the first rays of dawn began to peek through the blinds, I reached out to a former student of mine, now a ruthless divorce attorney known for handling complex cases. I composed a carefully worded email, hinting at my situation without revealing too much. I needed someone who would not flinch at what was to come. Over the next few days, I meticulously documented every interaction with Vanessa. Every text message, email, and conversation was saved and cataloged. I watched her with new eyes, noting every inconsistency, every nervous glance at her phone. I also started making small cash withdrawals from various ATMs, quietly building an emergency fund that Vanessa could not trace. It was not much, but it was a start, a safety net for whatever lay ahead. Late one night, I created a detailed timeline of Vanessa and Nathan's affair, cross-referencing it with family events, birthdays, holidays, and anniversaries, all now tainted by the knowledge of their deceit. It was a painful exercise, but a necessary one. I discreetly reached out to a private investigator, arranging a meeting under the guise of research for a new history course. I needed more evidence, more ammunition for the battle I knew was coming. As I delved deeper into the world of high-stakes divorce, I began researching advanced financial strategies to protect my assets, trusts, offshore accounts, cryptocurrency. I explored every avenue, determined to secure my future. Through it all, I developed a comprehensive plan, not just for revenge, but for my protection and long-term security. This was a chess game now, and I intended to stay several moves ahead at all times. Vanessa noticed a change in me, of course. She tried to initiate conversations, to apologize again and again. But I would simply nod, give non-committal responses, and retreat back into my planning. In quiet moments, usually late at night when the house was still, I allowed myself to feel the full weight of her betrayal. The pain washed over me in waves, threatening to pull me under. But then I thought of my plans, of the justice I would eventually see served, and I pushed the pain aside. I stood in front of my AP history class, discussing the intricacies of the Civil War. My voice was steady, my gestures animated. To anyone watching, I was the picture of a dedicated educator, fully invested in his students' learning. Inside, I was screaming. It had been 2 weeks since I discovered Vanessa's affair with Nathan. 2 weeks of pretending everything was normal. 2 weeks of dying a little more each day. But I could not let it show. Not here. Not now. Mr. Matthews? A student's voice snapped me out of my thoughts. Are you okay? I realized I had paused mid-sentence, staring blankly at the whiteboard. Shaking off the momentary lapse, I turned back to the class with a smile. Sorry about that, folks. Got lost in thought for a moment. Now, where were we? Yes, the Battle of Gettysburg. As I resumed the lesson, I silently berated myself. I could not afford slip-ups like that. My plan depended on maintaining absolute normalcy at school. In fact, I needed to do more than just maintain. I needed to excel. After class, I made my way to the principal's office. I had been mulling over an idea for weeks, and now seemed like the perfect time to pitch it. Come in, Caleb, Principal Anderson called as I knocked on her open door. What can I do for you? I took a seat across from her desk, leaning forward with enthusiasm I did not entirely have to fake. I have been thinking about the bullying issues we have seen lately. I began. I would like to propose a new anti-bullying initiative for the school. Her eyebrows lifted with interest. Go on. For the next 20 minutes, I outlined my plan. Peer mediation programs, awareness campaigns, guest speakers. I had done my research and presented it all with passionate conviction. By the time I finished, Anderson was nodding approvingly. This is excellent work, Caleb. I am impressed by your initiative. If you are willing to take the lead on this, I think we can make it happen. I left her office with a spring in my step, only partially an act. Leading this program would cement my reputation as a caring, involved teacher. It would also keep me busy and keep suspicion at bay. That evening, I attended my first meeting at the local historical society. As I mingled with the town's history buffs, I could not ignore the strategic value of expanding my social circle. These were respected members of the community. Their good opinion could be invaluable in the months to come. Caleb, a familiar voice called out. I turned to see Tom Bradshaw, one of Vanessa's coworkers, approaching with a smile. Did not expect to see you here. Where's Vanessa? I plastered on a rueful smile. Oh, you know how busy she has been lately. I thought I would let her have a quiet night at home. Tom nodded sympathetically. She has been putting in a lot of hours. You are a good man, Caleb. If only he knew. As I drove home that night, my mind raced with plans, the anti-bullying initiative, the historical society, the after-school tutoring program I was considering. Each piece was a carefully placed stepping stone leading me toward my ultimate goal. When I arrived home, Vanessa was curled up on the couch, watching television. She looked up as I entered, her eyes hopeful. Hey, she said softly. How was your evening? I shrugged, keeping my tone casual. Not bad. The historical society meeting was interesting. How about you? Did you get some rest? She nodded, then hesitated. I was thinking maybe we could talk about everything for a moment. I was tempted. A part of me, a part one was trying desperately to silence, still loved her. Still wanted to believe there was a way to fix this. But I could not. Not if I wanted my plan to succeed. Actually, I said, forcing a yawn, I'm pretty beat. Rain check? Oh, and I almost forgot. I will be staying late at school tomorrow. New tutoring program I am starting. You should see if Nathan wants to grab dinner or something. A flash of guilt crossed her face before confusion took its place. You want me to have dinner with Nathan? I shrugged again, the picture of nonchalance. Why not? He is my brother, after all, and you two work together. It is not like I can ask you never to see him again, right? As I headed upstairs, leaving a bewildered Vanessa behind, I allowed myself a small, satisfied smile. Let her spend time with Nathan. Let them think I was oblivious. It would only make their fall that much harder in the end. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into my new projects with enthusiasm. The anti-bullying initiative was a success, earning me praise from students, parents, and fellow teachers alike. My after-school tutoring program became popular, and I even started a blog, sharing history lessons and life advice. It was partly a way to build my public persona, but I found I actually enjoyed it, It gave me an outlet for thoughts and feelings I could not express elsewhere. All the while, I laid the groundwork for my revenge. Casual conversations with friends became opportunities to plant seeds of doubt about Vanessa's fidelity. You know, I would say with a rueful chuckle, Vanessa has been working so much lately, I feel like I hardly see her. Thank goodness for Nathan, at least someone is keeping an eye on her at the office, right? I watched as concern and suspicion bloomed in their eyes, even as they rushed to reassure me. It was almost too easy. And then came the masterstroke. The financial trap, the false investment, and the moment Vanessa unknowingly signed her name to her own downfall. She barely glanced at the papers, and that was her mistake. Before scrolling her signature across the bottom of each document, Vanessa did not bother to read them carefully. If she had, she might have noticed a crucial clause, one that granted me power of attorney over our joint assets. But she did not. I filed the papers away with a deep sense of satisfaction. As the weeks turned to months, I continued strengthening my financial foundation, offshore accounts, cryptocurrency investments, trusts. No stone was left unturned in my quest to protect my assets and secure my future. All the while, Vanessa grew more excited about our supposed startup investment. She checked her phone constantly, eager for updates from our non-existent former student. I fed her just enough fabricated details to keep her hooked, painting vivid images of the wealth that awaited us. You know, she mused one night over dinner, her eyes shining with anticipation. Once this investment pays off, maybe I could cut back my hours at work, spend more time with Emily. I nodded encouragingly, though my stomach churned with disgust. Did she truly believe she deserved that kind of happiness after what she had done? That sounds wonderful, honey, I lied smoothly. I am sure Emily would love that. As I cleared the dishes that night, I allowed myself a rare moment of reflection. The financial trap was set, and Vanessa was all but gift-wrapped for the disaster to come. And yet, as I glanced toward the living room, where she was curled up with Emily, reading a bedtime story, I saw a fleeting glimpse of the woman I had once loved, the woman I had believed would stand by my side forever. Then I blinked, and the illusion shattered. That woman was gone, if she had ever truly existed at all. In her place stood a stranger who had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I turned back to the sink. The trap was set. Now, it was time to spring it. I stood in the doorway of Nathan's office, watching as he paced back and forth, his face a mask of barely contained panic. It had been 3 months since I made those anonymous tips about his fraudulent business practices, and now the dominoes were finally falling. I do not understand, Nathan muttered, running a hand through his disheveled hair. Everything was fine, and then suddenly, it is like the whole world is falling apart. I stepped into the room, my expression a carefully crafted blend of concern and confusion. What is going on? Talk to me. He whirled to face me, his eyes wild. It is a nightmare, Caleb. Clients are pulling out left and right. The IRS is breathing down my neck, and my partners are calling me every 5 minutes, demanding explanations I cannot give them. I moved closer, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. It took every ounce of self-control not to curl my fingers into a fist and strike him. Jesus, Nate, that sounds serious. How can I help? Nathan sagged into his chair, looking utterly defeated. I do not know if anyone can help at this point. I am in deep, Caleb, deeper than you can imagine. Oh, if only he knew. Come on, I said, forcing warmth into my voice. You are my brother. Whatever it is, we will figure it out together. Why do you not walk me through what has been happening? For the next hour, I listened as Nathan poured out his tale of woe. With each revelation of fraud, every admission of falsified books and manipulated reports, I felt a savage joy building inside me. I was recording every word, of course. The hidden device in my pocket was capturing it all for posterity. And now, Nathan finished, his head in his hands. I have got the IRS crawling up my 5th place. I do not know what to do, Caleb. I am screwed. I leaned forward, my voice low and intense. Listen to me. We are going to get through this. I have got a friend in the financial sector. Let me introduce you to him. Maybe he can help straighten things out. Nathan looked up, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. You would do that for me? After everything? I smiled, the picture of fraternal forgiveness. Of course. You are my brother. 2 days later, I introduced Nathan to my friend, an undercover investigator I had hired to dig even deeper into his shady dealings. Desperate for a lifeline, Nathan spilled secret after secret to the man he believed to be his savior. Meanwhile, I played my role to perfection, the concerned, supportive brother, always ready with a sympathetic ear or an encouraging word. All the while, I was gathering more evidence, recording more damning admissions. Publicly, I maintained my good guy image. I showed up at Nathan's office with coffee and donuts, invited him over for family dinners. To the outside world, we were the picture of brotherly love. Behind the scenes, I was twisting the knife deeper and deeper. Anonymous tips to his remaining business partners. Whispers in the right ears about his questionable practices. Every move calculated to push Nathan further toward the edge. Then, just when I thought things could not get any sweeter, Nathan handed me the ultimate weapon on a silver platter. It was late. Nathan was drunk, 3 sheets to the wind, as he often was these days. I had carefully steered the conversation toward his personal life, waiting patiently for the moment he would take the bait. And then he did. You know what the worst part is, Caleb? He slurred, waving his glass for emphasis. I am losing everything. My business, my reputation, and for what? A few cheap thrills with your wife? I froze, my heart pounding. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for. What did you just say? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Nathan's eyes widened as he realized what he had let slip. Caleb, I did not mean, but it was too late. The floodgates had opened, and Nathan, drunk and desperate, confessed every sordid detail of his affair with Vanessa. I sat there, my face a mask of shock and betrayal, even as I inwardly rejoiced. It was all being recorded. Every damning word. As Nathan finally wound down, his face a picture of misery and guilt, I stood up. I think I should go, I said, my voice shaking. What Nathan would assume was from emotion. Caleb, wait, he pleaded. I am sorry. I am so sorry. Please, you cannot tell anyone. It would destroy everything. I paused at the door, looking back at him. For a moment, I was tempted to reveal everything, to watch the horror dawn on his face as he realized just how thoroughly I had played him. But no, the time was not right. Not yet. I need some time, I said, my voice carefully controlled. Just do not call me for a while, okay? And with that, I left him there, slumped in his chair, a broken man. As I drove home, a plan began to form in my mind. One final push to send Nathan over the edge. The next morning, I made an anonymous call to Nathan's wife, Sarah. Using the same voice modulator I had employed for the business tips, I told her everything about Nathan's affair with Vanessa. Well, almost everything. I left out the part about Emily possibly being Nathan's child. That revelation was being saved for a more public occasion. Over the next few days, I watched from afar as Nathan's personal life imploded. Sarah threw him out of the house, filing for divorce almost immediately. Between that and his crumbling business, Nathan was a man on the edge. And I was there to witness it all, playing the role of the supportive, forgiving brother, letting him think I was his only remaining ally. And then, when the time was right, I would deliver the final blow. My voice remained steady despite the turmoil roiling inside me. They had not only betrayed me, but every single person in this room who had ever believed in the sanctity of marriage and family. Nathan took a hesitant step forward, his face a mask of panic. Caleb, please, we can explain. I held up a hand, silencing him. Oh, I think you have done enough explaining, Nathan. In fact, why do we not let everyone hear it in your own words? With the press of a button, Nathan's drunken confession from that night in his office echoed through the room. I watched as the color drained from his face, as Vanessa crumpled into a nearby chair. But I was not done, not by a long shot. And now, the final piece of this sordid puzzle, I said, my voice cutting through the stunned murmurs of the crowd. As if their betrayal was not enough, they have robbed me of something even more precious. I paused, letting the tension build. My daughter. The room fell deathly silent as I revealed the results of the paternity test I had secretly conducted. Emily, the little girl I had loved and raised for 5 years, was not mine. Vanessa was openly sobbing now, her makeup running in black streaks down her face. Nathan stood frozen, his eyes wide with horror. As for me, I maintained my calm, almost sympathetic demeanor. I was the wronged party here, the man taking the high road despite the magnitude of their betrayal. I have struggled for months with how to handle this. I continued, my voice softening. I have prayed for guidance, for the strength to forgive. But in the end, I realized that the only way forward is to make a clean break. I turned to Vanessa, meeting her tear-filled gaze for the first time since the revelations began. Vanessa, I am filing for divorce. The room erupted into chaos. Friends and family surged forward, some to comfort me, others to confront Vanessa and Nathan. Through it all, I stood tall, accepting condolences with quiet dignity. I watched as Vanessa was led away by her shocked parents, Nathan slinking out a side door, desperate to escape the angry murmurs of the crowd. And as I stood there, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders, I knew the reckoning had begun. The weeks following the anniversary party were a whirlwind of activity. I had anticipated chaos, but even I was surprised by the speed and ferocity with which everything unraveled. Vanessa was the first to feel the full force of my carefully laid plans. It started just days after the party with a frantic phone call. "Caleb," she cried, her voice trembling on the other end of the line. "Something is wrong with our bank accounts. All our savings, they are gone." I feigned concern, my voice a perfect blend of confusion and worry. "What do you mean, gone? That is impossible." "I do not know," she wailed. "The startup we invested in, it declared bankruptcy. Everything we put in, it is just gone." I allowed a note of anger to creep into my voice. "The startup? You mean the one you insisted we pour all our money into?" It was a masterful bit of gaslighting, if I do say so myself. Of course, I had been the one to push for the investment. But in the emotional haze following the party, Vanessa's memory was clouded. It was all too easy to plant the seed of doubt, to make her believe this had been her idea all along. I thought," she stammered, clearly thrown off balance. "Never mind," I cut her off. "I will call the bank, see what I can find out." I hung up, a satisfied smile playing at my lips. The financial trap had been sprung, and Vanessa had walked right into it. Over the next few days, the hits kept coming. Vanessa soon discovered that not only were our savings gone, but we were now deeply in debt. The second mortgage, her idea, as far as she remembered, loomed large, a millstone around her neck. Meanwhile, my lawyer had initiated aggressive divorce proceedings, armed with the mountain of evidence I had accumulated. He painted a damning picture of Vanessa as an unfaithful wife who had systematically deceived and financially abused me throughout our marriage. I made sure to be seen around town looking haggard and stressed, playing the part of the wronged husband valiantly trying to hold his life together. The sympathy and support from the community were overwhelming. If only they knew the full extent of my machinations. Nathan, for his part, was faring no better. His business was in freefall, clients fleeing in droves as whispers of his fraudulent practices spread. The IRS was closing in, and his former business partners were distancing themselves as quickly as possible. One particularly satisfying moment came when I overheard a conversation at a local coffee shop. Two of Nathan's former clients huddled over their lattes, voices low but not quite low enough. "Can you believe it?" one muttered. "I heard he has been cooking the books for years. The IRS is going to crucify him." The other shook his head in disgust. "And to think we trusted him with our money. Thank God we got out when we did." I sipped my coffee, hiding my smirk behind the rim of the cup. The whispers I had started, the evidence I had strategically leaked. It was all coming together beautifully. As the weeks wore on, Vanessa and Nathan found themselves increasingly isolated. Their shared social circle, disgusted by their actions, began to ostracize them. Invitations dried up. Phone calls went unanswered. Even their closest friends could not bring themselves to stand by them in the face of such blatant betrayal. Desperate, Vanessa turned to her family for support. But I had been careful to cultivate strong relationships with her parents and siblings over the years. They had always seen me as the dependable, hard-working son-in-law. Now, faced with irrefutable evidence of their daughter's infidelity and deceit, they sided with me. I will never forget the day Vanessa showed up at my new apartment, her eyes red-rimmed and desperate. "Please, Caleb," she begged. "I know I do not deserve it, but I need help. I do not know what to do." For a moment, I was tempted to reveal everything, to tell her just how thoroughly I had orchestrated her downfall. But no, the game was not over yet. "I am sorry, Vanessa," I said, my voice firm but not unkind. "But you made your choices. Now, you have to live with the consequences." I closed the door on her tear-streaked face, feeling a mix of triumph and something else, something I was not quite ready to name. A bittersweet taste of revenge long in the making. Whatever it was, I pushed it aside. There was still work to be done. With Vanessa financially ruined and Nathan's career in tatters, the last phase of my plan was set into motion. The divorce proceedings were in full swing, and I intended to emerge victorious. My lawyer, a shark in an expensive suit, had built our case meticulously. During our initial consultation, he had raised an eyebrow at the sheer volume of evidence I presented. Mr. Matthews, he had said, leaning back in his chair. I have to say, I have never seen a client so prepared. I simply nodded, keeping my face neutral. I believe in being thorough. And now, as we sat across from Vanessa and her lawyer in the mediation room, that thoroughness was about to pay off. Bank statements, credit card bills, hotel receipts, every piece of evidence, carefully curated to show Vanessa in the worst possible light. But the coup de grace came when my lawyer played the recording of Vanessa's confession. Her tearful admission of staying with me for financial security echoed through the room, sealing her fate. In the end, the settlement was everything I had hoped for and more. Vanessa walked away with nothing but her personal belongings and a mountain of debt. And as for Emily, well, that was my final masterstroke. The room fell silent. I could see the wheels turning in everyone's minds. To them, I was being magnanimous, putting Emily's needs above my own pain. In reality, I was freeing myself from the daily reminder of Vanessa's betrayal while simultaneously burdening her and Nathan with the responsibility of raising a child in the midst of their financial ruin. It was the perfect revenge. Cold, calculated, wrapped in the guise of selflessness. As the divorce was finalized, I watched my carefully constructed plan reach its ultimate fruition. Nathan, already reeling from his business collapse, now faced multiple investigations for tax evasion and fraud. I had made sure that news of his misdeeds reached potential employers and clients, effectively blacklisting him in the industry. Vanessa, once the darling of our social circle, had become a pariah. Whispers followed her wherever she went. Her reputation was in tatters. The financial burden of raising Emily alone, coupled with the mountain of debt I had saddled her with, ensured she would be struggling for years to come. As for me, I emerged from the ordeal not only with my reputation intact but enhanced. I was seen as the strong, forgiving victim, the man who had weathered a terrible betrayal with grace and dignity. It was this image that landed me a prestigious teaching position at an exclusive private school in another state. A fresh start, away from the painful memories, away from the prying eyes of those who knew my story. But I was not content to simply walk away. No, I had one final card to play. Using my newfound platform as a respected educator, I penned a best-selling book on overcoming betrayal, weathering the storm, a journey through infidelity and redemption. It hit the shelves just as I was settling into my new life. The book was a sensation. Talk shows, speaking engagements, even whispers of a movie deal. Suddenly, I was everywhere. My story of resilience and forgiveness resonated with people across the country. Of course, the Caleb Matthews portrayed in those pages was a carefully crafted persona, the wronged husband who had found the strength to forgive, if not forget. The dedicated father who had put his child's needs above his own pain. The man who had emerged from the ashes of betrayal stronger and wiser. It was the perfect coda to my symphony of revenge. Not only had I destroyed Vanessa and Nathan's lives, but I had turned their betrayal into my stepping stone to success. As I packed up my belongings, preparing to leave town for my new life, I allowed myself a moment of reflection. The past year had been a whirlwind of calculated moves and carefully orchestrated chaos. I had played the long game, and I had won. I thought of Vanessa and Nathan, facing a future of legal battles, financial ruin, and social exile. I thought of Emily, innocent, unaware of the storm that had torn her family apart. For a brief moment, a flicker of doubt crossed my mind. Had I gone too far? But then I remembered the pain, the humiliation, the years of lies and betrayal. No, they had made their choices. Now, they would live with the consequences. I took one last look around the house that had once been our home. Then, without a backward glance, I walked out the door and into my new life. Caleb Matthews, the wronged husband, the dedicated teacher, the best-selling author, ready to face the world. Let Vanessa and Nathan deal with the wreckage. I had a bright future ahead of me built on the ashes of their betrayal. And as I drove away from the town that had witnessed my greatest pain and my most exquisite revenge, I allowed myself a small, satisfied smile. The game was over, and I had won.